thing also. Of course, the animal must die only by means of a cut. Kosher should be cut. If it is not morning, kasher, naturally it will not. With ayat and amet. But besides the night, there is no going to be soon. There's a high organ, a part of an animal. But it's not dead. It has an additional pursuit. This is doing so pregnant that it is born of the definitely fluid of the believer. They are not allowed to be part of an animal, but it's alive. They pull off a leg of an animal or anything, living thing, like in a chicken, while it's still living. Living means when it's in the process of dying, but it's not dead yet. In that case, it is considered the isur, even in a chai. It cannot be eaten even by goyim. Now, Sheshet said, your servants are suspected of preparing meals with even a chai. The meat they use was taken from a live animal, or an animal before it's fully died. That's what they cook for a meal. The governor was shocked. He said, who said so? How can you make a statement like that, which has never been proven, has never been dreamt of even, and especially of all people, you who are blind? How would you know whether they commit this type of sin? Sheshet said, fine. Let me sit at your table, I accept your offer, and I will show you. Sheshet had a student who served him. He said to the student silently, go steal one of the legs of the animal that's prepared for this meal. The student did this quietly, wrapped this up, kept it to himself under the table. Then, when they brought the meat to the table, the Sheshet said to the servants in front of the governor, I want you to bring to me the parts of the animal, cut up parts, all the parts of it. They brought 3 legs, because he had stolen one. So he said to them, is this an animal who had only 3 legs? What kind of an animal did you bring me? They were afraid, frightened. They went out and they cut off a leg of a live animal, nothing prepared. It was ready for cooking of a dead animal. They cut off a leg from a live animal and brought it. They put it down and they said, we misplaced it here. It was here's the 4th leg. So he said to his servant, well, take out that leg you just stole. So he took it out and put it on the table. So Sheshet said to them, that's some kind of an animal you have now, a 5-legged animal. So he said to the governor, you see that here's your proof. Your servants cannot be trusted. I've just proven it conclusively. Therefore, you cannot expect me to eat at the table. The governor was embarrassed. He excused him. Sheshet left. And as he left, the servants conspired to seek out revenge against Rav Sheshet. They had a hole dug in the garden path on the way out. They placed some branches, straw, to cover this hole, and they said to Rav Sheshet, we'll lead you out. Even if a person would see it, it would be difficult to detect it, but he could possibly detect this with a trap. Sheshet couldn't see. There was no way of escaping. Behind Rav Sheshet, Rav Chisda was walking. As he came close to this trap, Rav Chisda coughed. Now, this cough was obviously a miracle from heaven. But the fact that the cough came just then, Rav Sheshet felt was a sign that something was wrong. Now, how do you find out? He said, let me test the way the Gemara says. You ask a child, tell me what posek you learned today. You hear children walking there, they call over a child and say, what posek you learned today? The child said, I learned a posek. The Navi, which said, or turn away either to the right or to the left, not directly ahead. This isn't the stories breaking in. So Moshe said to his servant, look closely, observe, what do you see? He said, I see a straw mat laid out very neatly. And he said, well, in that case, then turn away, walk around it. There's something more here. When they left the grounds, Rav Chisda asked Rav Sheshet, how did you know that this was a trap? How could you have told? So in the first place, the fact that you caught, which warned me that something was wrong, though you hadn't intended it as a warning, but it sort of alerted me. The caught sort of makes a person jump. You're very sharp and alert, and felt sense intuitively that there was danger. Of course, his intuition was with the assistance of heaven, Hashem. Secondly, the child said the pasuk. Thirdly, I'm constantly aware of the fact that you must suspect servants. They cannot be trusted. They are no good. Therefore, I was suspicious of something being wrong. That's how he escaped. Gemara says, Kohelet, King Solomon speaks about the fact that he had Sarim and Sarot. He had many lords and ladies in the court. He had Sheda v'Shedot. Sheda v'Shedot, the Gemara asks, what are these things? Sheda v'Shedot could be officers, could be also singers. Shadim are those who sing. Sheda v'Shedot, that is possible, could be wagons, coaches for these officers. Could also be male shedim and female shedot, spirits, evil spirits. We know, even it says that Shlomo HaMelech was the greatest king of all time in power. He ruled over not just the entire world, the entire globe, but he also ruled over the upper world, meaning the world of the spirits. He ruled the king over the Shedim too. The Gemara says that to show proof of the fact that here it was also over the Shedim, the Shedot, but for what purpose? What did he need these Shedim for? What avail was this power? The Gemara says that he needed in order to complete the building of the Bet HaMikdash. Shlomo HaMelech built the first Bet HaMikdash, and he had to have the assistance of the Shedim in order to complete it. Because the Gemara says that the certain parts of the Bet HaMikdash, like the Mizbeach, for example, had to be built of a block of stone that was very smooth, perfectly smooth, and yet it could not be sanded or cut in any manner with steel, with metal. So that's you're not allowed to raise metal over the stones, because metal is a symbol of war, and this would be a symbol of peace. If so, how was he able to cut these stones smoothly? He said he had to employ the use of the shamir, which Moshe Rabbeinu had brought to make these special stones for the Kohen Gadol's breastplate. In order to make those stones, that is, to carve out the words on those stones, they had the words, the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. They had the names of the fathers of the Jews in order to contain all the 22 letters of the alphabet. These are the miracle stones, they're called the Ulev Tumim. They had to ask a question of heaven. They would ask the Kohen Gadol to present the question, and the letters on the Ulev would light up, and an answer from heaven replied to any big problem they had. So how did they cut these stones? How did they carve out the letters? They used the shamir too to carve out the letters in them. This was brought by Moshe Rabbeinu. However, now the shamir was gone. Where it was, no one knew. The shamir itself, what was the shamir that it had such power? Shamir itself was a worm, but it possessed such power that nothing could stand in its way. Nothing could withstand its power. If the shamir would walk on a rock or on the strongest metal, the rock would split, the metal would be cut in half. The shamir, a tiny worm walking on a mountain, would split the mountain in two. No matter what type of metal you use, if it is platinum, the hottest type of metal, or a diamond, it would split the diamond right through. The question, of course, is, if one had the shamir, how could he keep it? What would he put it in? If he put it on his hand, he'd have his hand split. If he put it into a box would split. The Gemara says they kept the shamir in sand, because he cannot split sand. That's where it was kept safer. When they had the shamir, now the shamir was gone, no one knew where it was, and Shlomo HaMelech, Solomon needed it to build the stones of the Mizbeach, the altar, parts of the Beit HaMikdash. How could he find that lost shamir? The Gemara says he asked his advisors, and they said, let's get the Shedim and Shedot, because they would probably know. Since they rise up to heaven, Shedim are a power going up to heaven, and back to earth, so they would know much more about it. So he caught two Shedim, and he used a compressor to press them both together. He actually crushed it. It was like all of Chinese torture. He compressed them so much that they were forced to admit. And they said, we cannot tell you where it is. We don't know. However, we would suggest that you ask to keep Yavli Shegin Ashmadai. So, he would know about it, but where could he be found? This is what information we had to get from them. So they said to the Manala, he could be found located in a certain mountain. On that mountain, the question, of course, is how do you catch it? The shed can fly. The shed can travel at amazing speed, the speed of an angel. The shed can travel to heaven and back. How do you capture a shed? Especially the keeping of the Shedim. So the Shedim told Shlomo that Ashmadai, the king, would travel each day up to heaven to attend the yeshiva in heaven, studying Torah. Then he would come down to earth and review it on earth. The Shedim must eat like humans, must eat and drink. In this respect, they're different than angels. So on earth, he keeps water in a special pit that he has dug out on the side of the mountain. And in order to be sure that no one tampers with that water, that it is kept clear, he has the pit covered, solid cover, with a strong lock over it. If he finds that that lock has been tampered with, he knows that he will not touch that water. Someone has done something wrong to it, either poisoned it or exchanged it for something else that's harmful. The point is to get Ashmadai somehow at that part, at that place. This took the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech, the felon. He told his general, Yaakov, here's what you do. Take a collar, chain, a leash, with the name of Hashem carved out of it, so that the Hashem fear, respect. Secondly, take a ring with the name of Hashem carved out of it, that will make you immune to any harm by this shed, because they have supernatural powers. It will make you immune to any harm from this shed. Third, here's the plan. This pit is carved out on the side of the mountain. It's perfectly perpendicular. The opening is on a slant. Now, you go to that pit, directly beneath the pit on that slant, dig a deep hole. And the hole should reach inside the mountain at the very bottom of that pit of water. Dig the hole into the bottom of the pit, Let all that water seep out, flow out of that pit into this new hole you've dug below it. All the water is out, and close up the hole in the bottom. Now what remains now is an empty pit, an empty well in the side of the mountain, with nothing in it, with the top still covered and locked. Now he said, after this, you go above, higher on the mountain, a point that's higher above the pit, dig deeply inside, a few feet into the mountain, in and then downwards, so that you can open a hole from there into the pit, without touching the cover of the pit on the outside. Pour wine through that hole. The wine will fill up the pit of the Tikuney Zohar. When that pit is filled, it closes this hole up. What does it result in? It results in having removed the water from that pit, filled it with wine. Nobody has tampered with the lock. The Tikuney Zohar did not recognize that it had changed for wine. Had anybody tampered with it. So he did this. He waited. He stayed there in hiding. And then he heard after that Tikuney Zohar come. Tested the lock first very carefully. Found that it hadn't been touched by anyone. And then he opened the pit and he saw that it was wine instead of water. After I saw this, he said, only a fool drinks wine and gets drunk. However, how it got there, he didn't know. It must be through a miracle. Nobody could have put it in there. Nobody could remove water and replace it with wine by osmosis, by magic. So therefore, he decided he will not trust it for weight. After that, I waited and waited until he became very thirsty, couldn't hold out anymore. And he drank it. He became very drowsy, and he fell asleep, as is the nature of the Shadim. Because Shadim, too, have that human trait in which they become sleepy, they have to sleep, and they have to eat. So he fell asleep. While he was asleep, Yaakov, the general of put the collar around him. This collar was Hashem's name, which now gave him the chain, now gave him the power over him. He could lead him as he pleases. He waited for him to wake up. Now first, let's analyze one point. The big problem here was to locate and find the shamir, this special worm that has the powers of splitting rock. Find its location. I had to go through so much trouble to get the shadim, to torture them, to confess, plan a way to capture the most dangerous creature ever, keeping the shadim that had superhuman powers of destroying, destruction. This was a very dangerous mission, much worse, much more dangerous than capturing any kind of wild animal or anything in creation. Why couldn't they simply have applied to the Urim V'Tumim, chest plate of the Kohen Gadol? That would give them an answer from heaven for a difficult question which they could not solve themselves. Ask the chest plate of the Kohen, where is the Shamir? Simple. The answer is, the Gemara says that the chest plate was made only to tell them, to reveal something of the future. This is what these were the messages that came from heaven. The Jews wanted to know whether they would succeed in certain items by going to war. Would they be successful? Would they be victorious? That was a question of the chest plate to answer. If it came to anything in the present, any question, even if it was a question of halakha, Hebrew law, is a certain item permissible, or is it forbidden? A certain item kasher, or taref? This the chest plate would not answer. Therefore, they had to resort to wild schemes of getting the answer through wisdom. So he said, Ashmedai the king woke up, and the general was standing there watching. As he woke up, he went into a fit of rage. He began to storm about, trying to escape from this power. Of course, the name of Hashem was on it. But Yahweh told him, the name of Hashem is upon you, stop battling that collar. He stopped battling it. Without the collar, of course, he would have had the power to destroy not just anyone around him, but even the entire world. There was no problem for a shed, especially a king of the shed, to destroy. So he led him with this power, with this trade, towards the palace of Shlomo HaMelech. On the way, the Ashmedai rubbed against a tree, and when he did, a large tree, giant-sized tree, the tree fell over on its side. It was uprooted and fell over. He rubbed against a house, and the house caved in. He came by a small hut that belonged to a woman, a widow. This poor widow came out and began to plead with Ashmedai. Please spare her home, her hut. Ashmedai was overcome by her begging, please, and he was that close to her, he had to bend over sideways very quickly to avoid touching her hut. As he did, he moved a bone out of place, actually broke a bone by doing it. And he said, Tikuney Zohar, soft-spoken word. Soft-spoken word is so soft, so mild, and seemingly so impotent, yet the soft-spoken word could break a bone so powerfully. Here we see proof. The soft word of this widow has caused the bone of the mighty Ashmedai to be broken. Then they continued on their way. Ashmedai saw a blind man who was going off the right path, and he led him onto the right path. He saw a drunken person also going off the road, very dangerous. He led him onto the road. He saw a happy occasion, people were singing and dancing. It was sort of a wedding ceremony. Everyone was happy. He cried. And he heard a man saying to a shoemaker, make me a pair of shoes that will last me 7 years. Ashmedai laughed at this. He saw a magician performing magic, sitting there and making up a brew, with his brew, and Ashmedai laughed. These actions will be explained later. They got to the palace of Shlomo HaMelech. They kept him there in the waiting room for 3 days without bringing him in to see King Solomon. First day, he insisted, why doesn't the king summon him? He brought me here to see the king. Why doesn't he come before him? They said to him, the king has eaten too much. He's not feeling well. They said to them, here, show the king this. He took 2 bricks, placed one on top of the other, then he removed the top brick and put it over to his side. Show this to the king. He's a very wise person. He'll understand. What this Mr. King Ronald said, what he's hinting at there is, take away the food from the king. The person is sick. Not feeling well, the best cure is to take away his food. Let him fast for a while. That will cure him eternally. Second day, beginning wasn't summoned, and he asked, why has the king summoned me today? They said, because he drank too much wine. He said to them, take this message to him. placed two bricks side by side. He took one and placed it on top of the other. Here's the king. He said, the message is that the person who drank too much wine, the best cure is to drink a little bit more, and that would bring it back. Little, that is, not to add to it, but the cure is hangover. The best thing is a little more wine. The third day, finally, he was summoned, taken before the king. And when he came before the king, he took a stick, 4 cubits, threw it in front of King Solomon. He said to him, let me see now, let me show you now. When a person dies, all he has out of this world is a grave that's just 4 cubits long, about 6 feet. That's all a person has left in this world. Now, you as King Solomon, you have conquered the whole world, not just 6 feet, you conquered the entire world. And you're not satisfied until you conquer me too. Is that what you want? The glory of conquering me in addition to the world? Ronald answered, I don't want anything from you. Just that I must build the Beit HaMikdash, and I must have the shamir, this word. That's all I ask of you. Ashmedai answered, this shamir was not given to me, this word of heavenly power. It was given to the angel appointed over the seas. This angel has given it to a wild bird. This wild bird has sworn to the angel of the seas that he will keep this from falling into the wrong hands. What does the angel do with this shamir? What does the bird, this wild bird, do with the shamir? He brings it to a mountain where there is no civilization, nothing grows. He places it on the tip of the mountain. The top part of the mountain splits. Then he brings special type of seeds, with which he seeds the ground under that split in the mountain, and the vegetation that comes out of that grows, and from this he lives. The question is now, that bird has the shamir. Where does the bird keep the shamir? If you catch the bird, how do you ever get the bird to talk? How do you get a bird to confess? Ronald said to his general, go and carry out these instructions. Find the nest of this bird, and then cover the top of the nest with white glass, very clear glass. When this bird comes, wants to enter the nest, make that glass very thick, clear. So thick the bird cannot break it. But so clear it can be seen through, completely transparent. Now when the bird came to the nest, he saw the little ones in the nest, but he couldn't get to them. He could see them clearly, but the glass covered the little ones. The bird was forced to fly off and to bring the shamir, place it on the glass in order to split this glass and get to the little bird. When he did this, Yaakov raised his voice to this bird, frightened the bird off for a moment, grabbed the shamir, and left it. The bird saw this. The bird killed itself, committed suicide for the fact that it had broken the vow. It had sworn to the king of the sea, the angel of the sea, that it would never let this shamir out of its possession, but be a loyal watchman over this, watch it loyally, devotedly, and here it was gotten out of his possession. This bird committed suicide, and the shamir was brought to King Solomon, and now used it to complete the building of the Beit HaMikdash. Even as meanwhile, Yaakov, the general, spoke to King Ashmedai. He asked him, please explain to me some of your previous actions. As we were coming to the palace, you saw this blind man straying from the road. Why did you help this blind man onto the road? This is not the way of a shed. Shedim are troublemakers. They don't try to help humans. The fact is, if you knocked over a tree, you knocked over a home, that I can understand. That's your nature. Evil troublemakers. Here's a blind man. You should, with your nature, you should have enjoyed seeing this blind man go off the road and getting hurt. Ashmedai answered, definitely not. It happens that I was in heaven, and I heard in heaven it being announced that this blind man is a tzadik gamur, a complete tzadik. Anybody who does him a favor will be zochet to get in him. That's how great a tzadik he is. Knowing this, naturally, I went to help him. They asked, well, why did you help this? He asked him, why did you help this drunken person? Well, surely no tzadik, because drinking, to overindulging in drink, is certainly a sin. Especially Arizal says that a person should never drink any intoxicating beverages except on purim. Even if a person goes to a wedding, he should not drink any whiskey or anything intoxicating. A little bit of wine or kiddush on Shabbat, the holidays, and that's it. Nothing that strength, no alcoholic beverages, except on the one day on Purim. Here's a person who's actually drunk. Why did you help him on the road? And he answered, I heard in heaven they announced that this person is a complete rasha. He might have done mitzvot at some time. This was to pay him back for those mitzvot, to save him from falling into a pit, hurting himself. I put him back on the road. Let him collect his reward for his mitzvot in that manner, and then he'll be ready for his complete Gehinnom. He asked, why is it when you saw this wedding, this simcha, you cried? He said, because I saw at this wedding, what have you done? That the chatan, Kala, were so happy together. I know what's best for them. Their fate is in heaven. This chatan is supposed to die within 30 days. Destined to die in 30 days, making the Kala of less than a month a widow. That's tragic enough. What's more tragic is the fact that she will not have any children yet. Therefore, she requires ibun or chalitza, the chatan's brother. Now, you cannot receive ibun or chalitza until the brother is 13 years old. He has a brother who's only a child, which means that this kala will have to wait nearly 13 years as a widow, bound where she cannot marry anyone else, to wait for 13 years until this child grows up old enough to give her chalitza. That's why I cried at the futility of these people making merry what they thought was a simcha. It was just a prelude to a double tragedy that was about to occur. I guess why, when you heard this man ordering a pair of shoes that would last him 7 years, why did you laugh? So I laughed at this fool who's worried about 7 years, doesn't even know if he's going to live 7 days. He wants shoes for 7 years. Why did you laugh when you saw this magician hatching this brew, performing his magic at that point when he passed him? He said because this magician was working to find out what was doing under him, what treasure there was. He was sitting over the treasury of the king himself. He doesn't know that's a treasury that's filled with tremendous treasure. He's not aware of the fact that this is, he thinks it's only an ordinary item. And his magic that he's using is not being used for the proper purpose. Plus, if he does succeed in finding out, his desire to get that treasure could easily lead to his downfall. Eventually, before he tries to break into the king's treasure. That's why I left. So, Ashmedai, the king of the Shedim, was kept prisoner in the palace of Shlomo HaMelech until the Mikdash was completed. After it was completed, he was summoned before the king. Shlomo HaMelech asked him, there's a pasuk in the Chumash which says, thinking about the powers of the angels and the Shedim. He asked Ashmedai king, I could readily see the fact that the angels are greater than humans. That's understood. But as far as the Shedim, what is special about you? What powers do you have? I know that you have power. You can visit heaven, you can fly. But what powers do you have? These are powers the angels have too. What powers do you have over the angels? That you have over us and even over the angels? Anything at all? If not, then what's the chidush with you? You're not as good as angels. You have nothing over them, so why consider you at all? We think about great powers, we think of angels. Ashmedai king said to Shlomo HaMelech, you want to find out what powers we have, remove this collar from my neck, give me your ring, and then I will show you my power. Shlomo was very curious. Curiosity, of course, is very dangerous, but he was always anxious to learn something new. He was willing to risk, not realizing that this was a very serious risk, to risk the results, consequences. He moved the collar from Ashmedai, then surrendered his ring to Ashmedai, meaning he removed his finger. At that moment, Ashmedai rose up. He started to rise in stature. He grew taller and taller until she didn't have wings. One of his wings reached the sky. One touched the ground. And this was an awesome spectacle. Not just like a giant of 30 feet tall, or even like the giant. This was a eerie spectacle, a very horrifying sight. At that moment, he said to Shlomo, you want to see what I can do to you? He picked him up, and he threw him a distance of 400 parasai, which is 1,600 miles away from the palace. 1,600 miles away, without any means of getting back. He was thrown in a manner where he had nothing with him. No money, no funds of any kind, nothing except his title and name. At that moment, too, one of the powers of a Shedim is that the Shed can convert himself, transform himself into anything he wishes. So he transformed himself into Shlomo HaMelech. He took over the throne and became King Solomon of the Jews. No one was any the wiser because he was identical to King Solomon. Same sound voice, same looks, exactly. Sat on the throne and no one would know the difference. Meanwhile, Shlomo HaMelech, 1,600 miles away, started to walk back the direction he came from. He figured he would get help by asking people to help him as king. He told them he was king, they laughed at him. Wherever he went, they laughed. They refused to assist him. They refused to give him any means of transportation. And this because something Kohelet. Kohelet said, Ani Kohelet, Ayiti Melech Ad Yisrael B'Yerushalmi. I, Kohelet, was previously king of the Jews. I have lost my throne. And he said, all I have from all my struggle and all my work and all my gain is just my stick, my staff. Because he kept on going, and continually wherever he went, he claimed, I am Kohelet. I am Shlomo HaMelech. People mocked him. But word got back to the Sanhedrin and the chief rabbis and said, there's something strange about this person. Because it cannot be a person who is insane, a person who is sanity is affected, thinks himself as someone else. But he will not stick to a story, one single item. If he finds that he's not believed, he'll switch his story. It'll be someone else. This one is too insistent. He claims he is Shulchan despite all the attempts to disprove him. At least we should investigate. Perhaps it'll happen. Let's investigate. Especially since we know that Ashmedai, the king of the Shedim, was here. Where he is now, we don't know, but some foul play might have taken place in the palace. So they called on Benayahu, the general of Shlomo. They asked him, tell us, have you been summoned at all by the king recently? And he answered, no, I have not. Now, they did not ask the other servants because they figured the other servants might have been summoned. They wouldn't know the difference. But Benayahu, if this was Ashmedai, the king of the Shedim, he would be afraid to summon Benayahu because Benayahu had this great Hashem's name on it. He wouldn't take that risk. It would be too much of a chance. He said, I have not been summoned at all. He said, this is strange. Already there's something suspicious. They said, find out from the queen if there's any contact with King Solomon. And they asked, did the king summon you? Queen or queens? There was a King Solomon. He said, yes. Do you see anything strange about him? He said, no. Did you look at his feet? You can't look at his feet because he only wears socks. Now, a shed can transform himself into anything. He cannot change his feet. Feet of a shed are webbed like that of a chicken, scaled and webbed. That's why, in order to hide this, he kept his socks on continually. And they said, this is definite proof. In that case, they said, go to confront him. Go to Ashmedai and confront him. That is, first get Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, and speak to him, which they did. Of course, they found that he was really the king. Look at the other side of the book. And then rise slowly, not too quickly. But it is a philosophy mitzvah that is brought very strong terms. The person when he wakes up, hurry, rise up, know that the day has begun, and the Shalom has returned to him, he should get up and serve Hashem. That speed of actually getting up means after the first few seconds of lying, resting, and then the first movement should be a slow one. Afterwards he should speed it up. But to open his eyes, get out of sleep, and jump out of bed, that's extremely risky and dangerous. Hazardous. The other says that there are certain items that are even more dangerous. A person who goes on a journey, this weakens him. If after coming back from this journey, he immediately gives blood, donates blood is drawn to him, and then he goes to a steam bath, and he drinks wine, and he lies on the ground. Another act, if he does it in this exact order, we don't go through the details, but the this is a guaranteed way for a person to die immediately. If a person does this, he dies immediately. Now this, of course, is if a person wants to commit murder, chas v'shalom, you can simply advise someone. It will be crime, a perfect crime. Advise someone to do this, he can never get caught. Except that, of course, there is a witness. in heaven. No person can ever commit a crime and get away with it. Hashem says that he can't get a person. The earthly judges cannot get a person. Hashem can. What the Gemara speaks about here is the person to be careful, to watch himself very carefully, not to perform these acts which are dangerous. Some of them are mortally dangerous. Then it says there are certain items that are good, and at the same time they are bad. They have benefits, they have faults. What should a person do in this case? Since the fault, the harm, is a very big one, the gain, though, is also present. What should a person do? He should do this to a small extent, a small measure. If he does this a little, he'll have the gain without the harm. If he does it a lot, he'll have the harm and not the gain. These items are going out on a journey, taking a walk, for example. Walking very far is unhealthy. Walking a short distance is healthy. Wealth. A person who possesses a lot of money, too much money, that person can find himself very deeply harmed because of the fact that too much wealth will bring him to ga'ava, conceit, which is the worst characteristic possible, the one that Hashem despises, Hashem does not tolerate. Too much wealth will bring a person to bitul Torah. He will be so occupied with his business ventures, he will not study Torah. A little bit of wealth is very good. It will not take away his time, will not give him that conceit, but it will give him the opportunity to serve Hashem properly, to give tzedakah, to take gifts in his home, especially for Shabbat, and to be free without the worry of poverty, to be free to concentrate on Torah and mitzvot. The same thing applies to work. A person should work to a small degree. It's healthy. Overwork can cause harm. Physically, too much work too will take away his time from Torah and mitzvot. Wine, a little bit is good for the health. A lot can cause a lot of harm. Sleep is one item which, if he has a little, he'll remain alert and healthy. And, of course, he'll spend his time, he'll have that much more time to live. When a person is asleep, he is not really living. That's time literally wasted or taken away, subtracted from his life. The person is awake, and he is alive and can act, can perform, can accomplish, can do his work. So therefore, too much sleep is very harmful, because it means that he is giving away of his life, giving away part of his life to the death side. If he sleeps little, he needs that sleep to sustain himself. At the same time, the gain is that he has that much more time to perform good. And that's why the Gemara says, too, that sleep is an item. Sometimes a lot of it is very bad, and sometimes a lot of it is very good. This the Gemara says in Sanhedrin. Sleep is, a lot of it is very bad for tzadikim. Because if they sleep a lot, the world loses. When a tzadik does mitzvot, it protects the world. The zechut helps the people in the entire world. The sha'im, when they are awake, the world suffers because they commit crimes, they harm others, they harm themselves, they harm others, and their sins weigh down the scale of the entire world. When they are asleep, they are incapable of committing any sins or crimes, everyone gains by it. So we see that the only time that a lot of sleep is good is only for the sha'im. For a regular person, for a good person, too much sleep is very bad. There's one more item, warm, something that's too hot, whether to drink, something that's too hot, or to bathe in water that's too hot, is very bad and very harmful. Whereas if it's warm to a tolerable degree, it's very healthy. It's certainly more healthy to drink warm drinks than very cold drinks, but it's healthier to bathe in warm water than in cold water. So it's very beneficial if it's a little bit hot. Very hot, it's very damaging. These are the items, the advice the Gemara gives to people to maintain their health to the best possible degree on their own. the rest, to really keep healthy and avoid sickness, this Gemara says a person has to pray for, to Hashem, he should be spared from any illnesses that come from heaven. Gemara says, as we find many times, the generations, as we go along, become worse as far as ethics, morals, and religion is concerned. There are less tzadikim as we go along in each generation, and even those who are in the middle of the road become less good, less pure, less religious. Now this applied even in the time of the Gemara. The Gemara itself compares the former generations to the present generations of the Gemara, and we take this in ratio, relatively speaking, each generation gets worse. The Gemara says, for example, the giving ma'aser of the crops, the wheat, the field. The farmer gathers the wheat and brings it into the warehouse. Now the ma'aser that goes to the Levi, because I'm not speaking about the ma'aser that goes to the poor, 10%. That, of course, is incumbent upon every person. There's additional ma'aser ishun, the first tenth goes to the Levi. But that ma'aser, the person is not responsible to give until the crops, the wheat, is carried into the warehouse. And even then, only if it comes through the door of the warehouse. Must go through the gate of the warehouse, then becomes responsible to have the maaser taken off of it. Even as says in the olden times, former generations, they used to bring the fruit, the vegetables, the vegetation, crops through the gates in order to be able to perform the mitzvah of maaser. They were so happy about the zechut, being able to give maaser. Later generations, knowing about this law, have made skylights in the roof of this warehouse, but carried it in over the roof through the skylight into the warehouse in order to avoid the chiyuv, responsibility of giving maaser. It is true that they are released from this mitzvah. They're not that bad that they refuse to give maaser when the maaser is obligatory. But they look for this loophole to try to avoid this mitzvah of maaser. That's how low they've stooped. Try to multiply that by who knows how many percentages from the time of the Gemara till today. We can imagine what today's generation is like, how they try to avoid mitzvot. But again, this is a warning that this refers to the majority of people. No person is forced to be of that majority. Each person can say, I want to carry out the mitzvot of the Torah to the strictest degree. That's the true Yirat Shemayim, true fear of Hashem, fear of the punishment of sins, fear of going against the will of Hashem, and the Ahava of Hashem, being able to serve Hashem, our King. In any mitzvah at all that comes up, a person should serve Hashem with simcha, the realization that he is zocheh to be able to serve Hashem. Gemara says that there are certain items, speaking about the laws of divorce. There are certain cases that it is advisable for a husband to divorce his wife. There are some cases when it's compulsory. The wife, as Shalom, commits adultery, and of course he has no choice. He must divorce her. Whether he is a Kohen or a Yisrael, it makes no difference. The wife who commits adultery willfully must be divorced. If it is not willfully done, then the Kohen must divorce his wife, not the Yisrael. However, there are other cases too where the Gemara says, though he is not forced to divorce her, it is advisable. But the Meir says that if his wife acts loosely, openly in front of the public, the marketplace, in the street, very loosely, meaning in a manner that's not sedate, that's not refined, going out and eating in the middle of the street and walking in a manner that draws attention to herself, manner that is not tzniut, then it is advisable to divorce her. Rabbi Akiva says that's too strict. At least there should be allowed the benefit of the doubt until we find that the public speaks about her openly in a very bad light. When she becomes the subject of conversation throughout, that she's acting not in accordance with the ways of a Jewish wife, then he is allowed to divorce her. But Yochanan ben Nuni says, you both are too strict. If we maintain these rules, then nobody, no woman, no daughter of Abraham Avinu, that means no Jewish woman, can remain with her husband. Every husband will have to, or practically everyone will have to divorce his wife. So therefore, we have to make certain allowances. And only in certain cases should one divorce his wife. In this case, of course, meaning where she actually breaks the strict laws of the Torah, then he is advised to divorce her, but not where her actions are borderline cases. Should not get the divorce at that point. Now the Gemara says, let's take this in a clearer perspective. Let's get the exact rule of divorce. The Torah says that a person marries a woman, she is his wife, and then the Torah says if he finds something wrong with her, then he should divorce her. Now, something wrong, that word something wrong in the Torah is called ervat davar. Ervat davar used as one term, yet the word ervat itself means zanut, adultery. Davar means anything, which means that we can take that meaning only adultery, an item of adultery, or anything which is bad. Adultery means something bad, so anything which is bad, like adultery, too, is a reason for divorce. Even this is we have a three-way machloket, a debate on this rule. Bet Shammai say that no person may divorce his wife unless she has actually committed adultery. That's the only reason for divorce and nothing else. Bet Hillel say that there are other reasons for divorce too. Not only matters of religion. If she does not serve him right, it is the duty of a wife to serve her husband, to care about his meals. If she does not feed him properly, deliberately spoils, burns his meals, then that's reason enough for divorce. Rabbi Akiva says, even if he finds a wife who is better in all respects than his own wife, then he may divorce her. Being more religious, more refined, and so on. Of course, the Shulchan Aruch says that the law does not remain like Rabbi Akiva. And Akiva himself undoubtedly said it, not as an actual insistence upon the carrying out a divorce. It was only advice that if this woman he marries does not have the right qualities, it will lead to divorce. Meaning that a person should seek a wife who is a true Eshet Chayil in the first place. And Akiva used himself as an example. The wife he married was one who was that pure, she was willing to have her material life sacrificed for the sake of a Talmid Chacham. And taking that to mind, Akiva said each person should seek a wife who is that pure. However, the Shulchan Aruch says that the law is not even like Bet Hillel in this case. The wife burns his food, he should not divorce her. The true reason for divorce, where it is legal for a person, legal in the sense that he has to divorce her, he should not seek excuses otherwise, is the case of adultery or something similar. Similar means that his wife deliberately breaks the major laws of the Torah, Chilul Shabbat, or deliberately tries to feed him tarif, or does not abide by the mitzvah of nidah, then it is a mitzvah to divorce her. Otherwise, a person should be very, very slow in reaching a point where he would divorce his wife. Other than those major items, a person should bend every effort for a reconciliation, try to speak to his wife to improve her, to straighten out any difficulties that might lead her to doing things that are not beneficial to him, but anything other than divorce. The Rabbi Meir tells us of examples of the types of men there are in relation to the wives, how they act with their wives. They said that there is a person, for example, who is that delicate that if a fly would fall into his cup, his food, then he would refuse to eat the entire food. He would throw away the fly, and he refused to eat the food. The fly is not a filthy type of insect. It's not clean, of course, but it's something that would not contaminate the food by falling into it. It could be thrown away with nothing left of it, and not to have to waste a plate of food or a drink. A person who is that delicate, and this we compare Papus Ben Yehuda. Delicate in the sense, particular, person that particular, case of a man who's married to a wife, and he is so particular about her, so jealous, that when he leaves home, he first locks her in to make sure she does not go out, not to speak to any other man. This is so high a degree of jealousy that this can result in the very opposite reaction. As in his case, the letter says his wife committed Zedut, and from this, of course, was born the unmentionable one. The second case, the letter says, in the case of a person who is that uncouth. Well, let's take first the middle of the road case. A regular person is one. When a fly falls into his cup or his food, he casts the fly aside, and he finishes the meal. This is the case of a regular person who is particular about his wife, where she goes, who she speaks to, but not in the sense that he will stop her and force her to refrain from speaking even to her own relatives. He does things with moderation. He gives his wife a degree of freedom just to see that it is legal, but he does not act with that insane jealousy. This is the way, the natural, normal way that a woman is to act. Tzniut, not to speak to other men, but to her relatives or together, she has the freedom to speak. Third case is the opposite extreme, a person who is that ill-bred, uncouth, that a fly falls into his soup, and he squeezes out the fly to save that little drop of soup rather than absorb the fly, and he eats that plate. This is the case of a person who is that evil that he allows his wife to go out, dressed immodestly, openly in public, and to conduct herself with that complete lack of modesty with other men. In this case, then a woman like that, who is that loose, falls into the category of Erevat Davat, that is close to the act of Zidut itself. The one who is that lax, so that says, if she retains that laxity, we're speaking, of course, not just speaking to other men, but acting loosely, and in her case, she should be divorced. It's an Zidut and a Zidut to divorce her. Even as we have this instead of to divorce a wife, note, even as a continuation of this pasuk, it says that a man divorces his wife because he found in her Erevat Davat, she had committed this grievous sin of adultery. The Shulchan Beito, he sends her out of his home through the medium of divorce. She goes, becomes the wife of a different man. Now, note that it does not say Ish Sheni, the second man. It says Ish Acher, a different man. Even as his meaning, this is a man who is different from the first. The first one was pure. He had a Risha'ah in his home, a female Rasha. He cast her out. He got rid of her. The second man is different than himself. second man of the Rasha himself, he took this woman into his home. He accepted her as his wife. How different he is from the first. The Gemara says if the second one is Zocheh, if he is Zocheh, he becomes pure. The result will be, as the pasuk says after this, Usne'ah ha'isha Aharon, if the second man will hate her, and the pasuk says that he will divorce her or he will die, she can never again go back to her first husband. The Gemara says no. It refers to this case. The second man, if he is Zocheh, he will divorce her, because he'll realize that he has a Risha'ah in his home. If he is not Zocheh, he accepted this Risha'ah, then he will die. These are the two possibilities. If he's Zocheh, he divorces her too, now he dies as a result of marrying this Risha'ah. Even it says that the Nabi tells us that one who divorces his wife is Saneh Shalach. And this means that the one who divorces his wife, he is hated. He has performed a despicable act. Another interpretation is that if she is despised by him, he cannot tolerate her for obvious reasons, sins she committed, then Shalach, divorce her, the command is to divorce her. These two are not opposing opinions. They are two different cases. Even it says if this is the second zivug, person lost his first wife, he married again, in that case, if she is disliked by him, get rid of her. Don't even try to reconcile the differences. But if this is the first wife, this is the Eshet Urim, first wife he ever married, and despised is he who divorces that first wife, his first zivug. Because one who divorces his first wife, even in this Be'ach, the altar, the Bet HaMikdash, sheds tears over this divorce. What has the Mizbeach got to do with a person divorcing his wife? Why should the Mizbeach of all things be the one to shed tears? It's tragic. This is true. It's his first zivug. It is his real zivug. This is the other half of his neshama. As the Zohar Kadosh says, the person, when he is born, he is actually born as one combination of two neshamot. Or they are sent down separately to birth. And then he seeks his match, his actual zivug, which is the other half of his neshama. Now, this is his first zivug. It is his own part. And if he divorces her, it's very tragic. But why should the Mizbeach be the one to cry over it? The answer is that the Mizbeach cries because of the pasuk in the Navi, where Hashem says that I have taken the Jews at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai, in the form of a marriage, of a chatan and a kala. The entire Shir HaShirim deals with this exchange of words between the chatan and the kala, that means Hashem and the Jews, with the Torah being the marriage contract. In this case, Hashem says, this to Hashem, this is the first zivug. And when there is a first zivug, this should be a permanent one. Now, if a person shows that there is a possibility, chas v'shalom, of a separation, of a severance, separating a husband from his first zivug, this chas v'shalom could imply that the same thing can happen and happen too. Hashem should chas v'shalom send his people, the Jews, out into Galut, which means to drive them out of his home. Just as a man who drives his wife out by giving her a kid, a divorce, this would be that too that can happen. Chas v'shalom, Hashem would send the Jews out of his home, send them into Galut, and refuse them, give them an actual divorce. So because of this, the Mizbeach, the purpose of the Mizbeach is to bring a korban, sacrifice to Hashem. The Gemara says, what's the meaning of the word korban? Why is it called korban? Because the Mizbeach makes peace between the Jew and Hashem. The Jew committed a crime, a sin against Hashem. He brings a korban. This again brings out the good, he's found favorable in the eyes of Hashem. The word korban means the kiruv, to bring close the Jews to their Father in heaven, bring close the Jews to Hashem, and make peace again where there was a lack of peace. Now the Mizbeach sees that the person divorces his first wife, his first zivug. Mizbeach cries because this means that there can be this separation without the korban, without bringing the Jew close to Hashem. And therefore a person should avoid at all costs ever divorcing his first zivug. That's to show no matter how much friction there is, no matter how serious the difference is, no matter how much a person is suffering. Aharon says that, of course, we're not speaking about the case of adultery or that type. We're talking about the case where a woman is that bad, for example, to her husband. The husband is that bad to her wife, where they disregard the other person's feelings. One hurts the other very badly. Still, Aharon says that a person has a wife that is that bad and makes his life truly miserable, he still should not commit a crime against her by giving her a divorce. Because at worst, the worst meaning, the least he stands to gain is Gan Eden. The person who really has that bad a wife that he never goes to Gehinnom. If that is true, that he has so bad a wife. Some men imagine their wives are that bad and don't really deserve this privilege. But if it is even true that she is that bad to him, then he still gains the fact that he never goes to Gehinnom. But in any event, nothing should ever reach a point, reach that point, where a person will have to, resort to actual get. One who is that pure that he attains the shalom bayit, we can understand then why the Gemara says that where there is shalom in a home, the Shekhinah is present there too. Because this is what Hashem wants, shalom in a person's home. And where there is this shalom, Hashem says, I will not remove my presence nor drive you away from me. But where there is Ishu Isha, and the shalom beneath is peace between them, the Shekhinah too rests in that home. The blessings of Hashem are constantly present in that home. This teaches us, above all else, that at all times a person should see to it to be the one to maintain peace, harmony, and goodwill in his home, especially between husband and wife, because in a true sense, the husband and wife represent we always say Hashem Yichud, bring about a Yichud, a union of Hashem and the Shekhinah, completely letters of Hashem's name by husband and wife keeping the peace in their home. They are thereby being the Yachid, being close, uniting and above all else, that's a chut. This brings about the Geulah Shlema, because then Hashem will bring the Jews back to Eretz Yisrael, and build the Beit HaMikdash, and coming out Mashiach, Eno, K'mehirah B'Yameinu, Amen, V'Yamen. One of important, very tiny items. For example, the point of the Kabbalah thing. In the Torah we find, you understand that you're supposed to obey the laws of the Rabbanan. The laws of the Rabbanan means the laws of the Gemara. They are not meant to be Haman. The Gemara says, for example, when you make a beracha, when lighting a candle, you say, Baruch Atah Hashem, or say, thank you to say the God, and then you Zanu, you have Mikneh on that. You commanded us, Hashem. And when you find it, you commanded us. This is the Mitzvah Rabbanan. Rabbi Zira said that Mitzvah light candles. Why do you have this key Zanu? What do you need from the Haman? The Gemara answers, yes. If you learn that the particular Haman, makes Hashem min HaDavar, after Yakidu L'Chayim in the small. Not turn away from what the rabbis tell you, right or left. Strict or too lax, do not turn away from their words. If they told you to light candles, and I tell you don't turn away from that. So if you don't read, in this pasuk, what Ashur is told. Hashem told us. The Kabbalah says that this applies to candle lighting is one of the 70 sources of Rabbanon. 630 is what we put at. Kedra for the Rabbanan, together, Hariyag is 613, and 640 is Kedra, count. After Shchat, Kedra in Torah is the Kedra for the Rabbanan. Where do you find that? You find that the Seret HaGebrot, the Yerushalmi says, it covers, not just the place and everything, all 613 is more. In the first of the book, we count the letters. We have exactly 613 letters plus 7. 620 letters. Get this one out. 620 letters to show that this covers the book right there. I'm going to have an answer. That's 7. Now, would we say that just the 7 mitzvot are included in the pasuk lo tasur? Do not cover the laws of the Rabbanan? No. This includes everything to that. Take, for example, a small one. Consider a small mitzvah. Where the Rabbanan say, Shulchan that a small item, when you get dressed, you're dressed according to Hebrew law. How? Put on your right shoe first, then your left shoe. Tie your shoes, tie the left shoe first, then the right. That's so tiny a law, a person wouldn't consider that important. Whereas in Lo Tasub Redavar, Yimid Usmol, don't count even from a law that's so tiny as this Yimid Usmol, the right shoe first, and small the left shoe to tie first, even that tiny mitzvah too. You should not turn away. Let's do in the Torah. And this is what's meant by, we'll come to next week, comparison. Person turns away from mitzvah Hashem, like adultery. The person who is loyal to Hashem, all that is bought, that person is a loyal to the wife of the Chatan. Then you have the Shalom, which Hashem blesses people. That's for next Tuesday, this coming Shabbat at 6:30. Time's the time of Shabbat, bring your time. 6:30, Yezrat Hashem this Shabbat, 20th step. 6:30 and 20th step we start. Let's figure 25 to 7 sharp, button goes down. Imagine the button goes down on the Shabbat. 25 to 7 for the Shiur. There are only 2 more Shabbats after this before the summer. So these 2 Shabbats, these 3, next 2 weeks are worth the equivalent of 10 weeks.
About tying your right shoe first, your left shoe second. That I know about, but I always thought that if you should No, because I heard this from you before. No, I heard this from you before, you know. But the thing about tying, I mean, is it
always that I said something 9 years ago before. I didn't think that before, but I brought this side something years ago before. This is fine if I took it in Torah. Not go Chassidut. You cannot turn away from the left, I say right or left. Refer to that.
Oh, that's direct? Oh. No, I didn't. In other words, they brought that out.
What? What sefer? This way Kabbalah. This way Chassidut. It's part of the Chassidut.
And you put on your right shoe first and then tie your right shoe first without putting on your left shoe at all? Put on your right shoe.
Yeah.
And tie your right shoe.
You intend to go with one shoe that day, yes?
Oh, in other words, you got to put on the right shoe and the left shoe.
Right.
Tie and the left shoe. How about putting on a jacket? You're supposed to put your right arm in front. You can grab it.
I will tie one major item. This is called certain homes, let's say, where we don't, my home for example, certain others, where we don't accept criticism about certain items, and people would criticize this custom, but there's what you might call blind loyalty, very blind loyalty. As the United States, but people call me a fool all my life, as long as in heaven I'm not called a Rasha. I'm not saying that you don't be called a Rasha, I'm saying that he's the first part. It's good to be called a fool all your life. You know he's doing this right. So in this case, despite all criticism, we adhere to this custom very strictly. Person comes to my house, outstretched hands, on knees, he wants money, I refuse it. A nickel, a dime, a dollar, whatever price you can afford to get. Every unease, across the second, open your hands to it. Person comes and wants, he asks for handouts, here's a dime, fine. Person says, don't give me a dime. Give me a penny a week. What penny a week is all that? How? Maybe it's a test. He just will tell you, huh? And if you see that, but if you see, he just gets like, all right, anything's better. Because you have to put aside a penny a week. That's all that. Right, and please do not accept it. You want a penny a week? 50 cents a year, $50. That's not going to be good. I will not accept it to pass my home. Twice as much as you want to get past, 5 times as much, 10 times as much. But no kutar enters that home. The wood kutar is that. We are a wood kutar home. That kutar is only the big result. That's it. Nothing else. It means not that we refuse to give together elsewhere. 500 people come to the war. 500 different organizations. No one is excused. But not taking part. Just one item is a home two. It is a pure breath of home and sense of the God. We have asked many times. What has worked for now? Anybody that uses the past threshold, get it now? I'm not telling you to follow that same custom. I'm not saying you don't ever quote me that I suggest to follow it. I think that's clear. I am not telling you to follow a custom having looked inside your house. I'm only telling you this is what we do, and then think about it for yourself. If you do it, it's your decision, not following an edict. This is a picture of the yeshiva, rest of the yeshiva in Yerushalmi, the way it was before the second half was added. Most people here were in Yerushalmi with the rest of the yeshiva. But on the side, like this, the front half was added later on. That's what the picture is taken. But
there's the doors out there now. Yeah, but that is one of them.
Oh, this is a drawing before the year was finished.
Oh.
So this is hand drawn by an artist. It isn't exactly the building, but it's close to it. In any event, they pointed this is for the yeshiva Breslov. Or Hadeh Allah means the hidden light. The light of the Rabbi Nachman is hidden for most people. Because it's Yaakov. I think of that person. And that light is not. Well, it's your fault. You're supposed to get married. You got. Sorry? Is that what? That's done. Who's that for? I don't know. As long as you know that's breakfast. Anybody else? That's down, please. I'll get the keys. Yes. I have no seat. Huh? I have to get seat. There's no charge for the course. It's the same money you put in your tax. Same thing. That's not doors. That's windows. That was made as windows. Only that the second one to the left is the actual door. Now this is completely changed. You ought to think the... Yeah, that's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's right.
No, the picture is in it.
When did you see that?
Yeah, it's more. You got that in the first place?
You have money. Carry the way to save our cost. And you have it, right?
You can borrow it.
No, can you give money out of the pocket and go home and take that money?
Of course. Definitely.
Yeah?
Of course.
You can't take money out of the IOU. But it's good if you play out and then go home and put it in your pocket.
The only time you can do that is if you have money laying someplace else.
Well, if you have money, you can.
Yes, I have to keep money. You get taken away anyway. No, you take money in the bank too.
Have money out of it?
Yes. Say a person has $300 in the bank, and he has to buy, let's say, a refrigerator. That may cost $325. $25 a time. He goes, I really take the check and $1,000 a check. That's the limit.
You have the money.
That money is putting aside. Puts down IOU, money invest. Money. You have to respect the. You have to forget that those companies have to insure you and forget it.
Wow,